wabarakatuh. Good morning. My name is Beatrice Sabila Putri Mahendra. I am a junior auditor at KAPM Audit Prasetya and Rekan that responsible for auditing the allowance for doubtful debt accounts. And then for this occasions, I would like to present the result of my audit work. Okay, so the account I audit is the allowance for doubtful debts, which is reserved account for potential losses from uncollectible account receivable that the client company established to anticipate the risk of bad debts. The client is the PT Wahana Kasetia, and my objective in auditing the allowance for doubtful debts account is to ensure that the reserve for bad debts recorded by the client company is fairly stated. By performing an aging schedule and then assessing debtor conditions and then confirming receivable and checking payment after the reporting date, and also I evaluate whether the receivable are truly collectible or at risk of being uncollectibles. Based on the audit evidence that I got from the clients, I calculate what the allowance should be and compare with the company records to ensure that the financial statements are not overstated. Okay, for the first steps, I determine what the balance per book and then the opening balance of the allowance for doubtful debts accounts. There is information about the audit evidence from the clients. This information including like the allowance for bad debts account in 2022 and 2021. Based on this data, I classified that the balance per book is cut from the 2022, and then for the opening balance, I cut it from the 2021 for the allowance for bad debt account. So I put it in this sheet. This is the balance per book that I got from the 2022, and then this is the opening balance that I got from the 2021 for the allowance for bad debt account. And then for the practical part, I perform the following steps that like the collecting aging schedule from the clients. I request detail and aging of receivable for the clients credit department for all debtors. There is information about 18 debtors. This sheet based on this data. This is the list of accounts receivable of PT Wahana Kasetia for these clients. And then from this data, there is information about there is 18 debtors, and then for each debtors has invoice numbers and then invoice date, and then the important things that the terms, and then for this amount. And then based on this data, I classified debtor based on the past due dates in days for each debtors. There is information 5 about the past due date in days. The first is not late or performing, and then the second is late 1 until 30 days, and then late 31 until 60 days, and late 61 until 90 days, and more than 90 days. So because there is information about the past due date in days, I classified for each debtors with the calculate the maximum date the invoice should be paid. For the example, like Dewi Cahaya, the invoice date is 10 August 2022, but the term is 2 per 10 and per 45. That means that the maximum payment date is 45 days. And how I know what the 45 days after the invoice date is 25 September 2022. So the 25 September 2022 is the maximum payment date. And on December 31, 2022, if this invoice has not been paid, the meaning that the delay is from 25 September 2022 to December 31, 2022 is 3 months plus 4 days. Therefore, the number 1 is placed in the column for late more than 90 days because it's more than 90 days, so I put it in here and so on. And after I classified this page delete in days for each debtors, I'm totaling for each page delete in days, and I multiply by the percent that's already mentioned from the company. And from this total of the page delete in days, it was determined after classification that the total allowance for doubtful debts account is 24 million. And then after that, I classify the condition of each debtors. There is 3 the condition of the debtors. The first is performing loans. That means debtors whose majority of invoices are not late or late by 30 until 60 days. But in substandard loans, that means that mostly late between 60 until 90 days, and for the last is doubtful loans, that invoices are over late 90 days late. At these steps, I do it by asking questions to the credit section or credit authority. This is related to the testing for the allowance for bad debt accounts to guarantee qualitatively or visibly that the amount of loss is answerable. Okay, so for example, like the first Ude Cahaya is I am classified with the comments on the on debtor condition is doubtful loans because it's more than 90 days, right? So I put it the doubtful loans for the comments on debtor conditions, and this is I already do about the comments on debtor condition for each debtors. And then for the next step is based on the previous calculation in this sheet 2, it was determined that the total allowance for doubtful debts account is 24 million. So I entered this total into the sheet 1. This is I put it in here because this is the for the information about the allowance for doubtful debts. And I also calculate about the net receivable. This is got from the gross account receivable. And then I minus with the allowance for doubtful debts, and I got it from the net receivable is 605 millions. And then after I'll calculate about based on the several stage etching and others, then I work on the working paper. This is the working paper of the allowance for bad debt accounts. There is information about the beginning balance like the previous sheet. This is the beginning balance of the allowance for doubtful debts, so I put it in the beginning balance in here of the working papers. And then we know that ending balance audit of allowance for the bad debt account is 24 millions, that I got it from this sheet. This is for the total allowance for doubtful debt, so it is from the ending balance of audit. And how I got allowance for doubtful debts 2022, it from the ending balance audit is 24 millions minus with the beginning balance, so I got it 18 millions. And then from the ending balance, I put it in for this the balance per book of the allowance for bad debts, so I fill it in here. And then I classified the differences between the ending balance of audit and ending balance internal ledger is there is differences 7 millions. Okay, because there is differences, so I should make the adjustment journal of this allowance for bad debts. There is the adjustment journal. The purpose of I making an adjustment journal, the entry is 7 millions, is to adjust the amount of allowance for doubtful accounts recorded by the company to match the result of my testing. And after that, after I calculation about the allowance for doubtful debts, all of the allowance for doubtful debts, I feel complete these first steps that we know the balance per audit and for our allowance for doubtful debts in set 1 is 24 millions. So I know that net adjustment is the differences like the previous slide I explaining. So the net adjustment is 7 million because this is the differences for the balance per audit and balance per book. On all of the audit procedure I have performed before, from the receivable reconciliation and assessment on of debtor conditions, and then the allowance confirmation to the calculate of allowance, I conclude that the allowance for doubtful accounts recorded by the company does not yet reflect the actual collectively risk. Therefore, as an auditor, I proposed an adjusting journal entry for the differences of the balance for audits and balance per journal ledgers to adjust the allowance so that the client company, the PT Wahaneka Setia, financial statements are not overstated and can be presented fairly in accordance with the evidence obtained. So that's all from my audit work of that responsibility for the allowance for doubtful debts accounts. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.